And now a few words from our sponsors. Thank you. We are also brought to you by Washco Strength and Speed, located at 3604 North Peoria Road, 217-899-3233. Of course, I'm talking about Jared Washco, the Springfield area firefighter, the former pitching standout at SHG and SCI. He is credentialed. He is a CPT, CSCS. Those are the highest credentials you can get in the strength and conditioning game. I think he is absolutely fantastic working with young athletes, probably the best in the area, working with baseball players. His results say it all. He's worked with high school guys, college guys, pro guys, and they keep coming back to him. They get bigger, they get faster, they get stronger, more explosive, better at their sport, less injury prone. He handles it all. He does arm care work. He does speed work. Go see Jared if you are a local athlete trying to get the most out of yourself. Invest in yourself. Go see Jared. We are also brought to you by the Office Sports Bar and Grill, located at 1919 West Isles Avenue. This is a really special place. I've been going there since probably 20 years, since I was in college, and there's just so much cool sports memorabilia, dating back through Springfield's history. All different high schools represented, pro guys, college guys. There's some great stuff on the walls. It's a great place to get together with friends, a great environment, inviting, warm, happy, lively. Great place for great conversation, great drinks, and great food. Please go see this place. Go patronize them. We really appreciate the support. The Office Sports Bar and Grill. We are also brought to you by Sitco Chiropractic. They can be reached at 217-525-2035 and sitcochiropractic.com. They offer chiropractic care, corrective exercises, lifestyle advice, nutritional counseling, spinal and postural screenings. They are located at 205 North Grand Avenue. Love the Sitco family. From the dad, Steven, to Kyle and Casey, I grew up with them. Their brother, Tyler, was a big-time baseball player at SHG and SCI. There's a reason they have over 70 ratings on Google, and they're all 5.0. These guys are great. I went to them a few years back for some back issues I was having. They'll fix you right up. Go see Sitco Chiropractic. We are also brought to you by Sheehan and Sheehan Lawyers, located at 1215 South 4th Street, Suite A. They can be contacted at 217-544-0701. I'm talking Pat Sr., Pat Jr., and Willie. They can be contacted for adoption needs, agricultural law, business and commercial law, estate planning, real estate planning, taxation, traffic and minor traffic offenses, personal injury, wrongful death suits. And I grew up with Willie playing baseball on the Southwest Braves. We were state champs. He played high school baseball and soccer at SHG. Pat Jr. was an accomplished baseball player at SHG, SCI, and finally the U of I. We really appreciate the Sheens here. Love this guy. Love this family. Great, great family. So go see these guys. Appreciate you. This episode is brought to you by Glisten Heating and Air. You can reach them at 217-341-3129 or visit glistenheatingandair.com. That's GLISSON. This is owned and operated by Gibbs Gleason himself, a member of the 2000 Pleasant Plains baseball team that were state champs. That's the Dusty Bensko era, former guest. This guy's in the baseball community. He helps coach his son, who's in the local travel scene. This truly is the pros pro for HVAC in the area. I mean, this is a who's who of former pros that have used him. Let's talk about Corey Erickson, Jason Worth, Ryan Murphy, Jason Knadler, Justin Knadler, Brad Owens, Greg Morantz, Jason Washam, Eric Easley. His reviews speak for themselves. Call Glisten Heating and Air. They care about your air. We appreciate you. We are also brought to you by Milner Dentistry, located at 755 South Grand Avenue West. They can be reached at 217-528-3384. Dr. Ty and his staff are incredible. The place is clean. They do amazing work. They can handle all your dentistry needs. Thanks again to Dr. Ty for agreeing to sponsor us here. He was a standout at Rochester, SCI, and then later had a really cool story of walking on at the U of I. Have a ton of respect for this guy. Please go support Dr. Ty and Milner Dentistry. Okay, we are back. I'm going to call this part 2.
We're rolling here. We're kind of wrapping up your career at LMU. Had an All-American year, but could not get a sniff from affiliated baseball. So what is Jamie Stash doing next? Tell me.
J- Jamie
How do you end up
Stash
in the
is
Frontier League?
well. We had one of the guys in our administrative office. I can't remember his. He's a name I'd like to remember, but I should remember. But he was there at school, and he was a part, like GM of the Kentucky Rifles. Okay. And it was the first year of the league, or first year of the team. I mean, it might have been the first year of the league itself. And he knew about me because he was at LMU, and I believe, I'm not quite sure this is totally true, but I think it's true that I think I was the first pick, the first pick for the Kentucky Rifles.
Oh, cool.
To be on the roster. We got there, and Pikeville, Kentucky, in the middle of nowhere, mountains of way eastern Kentucky, but Pikeville and Paintsville. So we had two different homes at the time when that team started. We'd play in Pikeville, we'd play in Paintsville. We lived in Paintsville because that's where our housing was. Well, we played most of our games in Pikeville, which is about a 40-minute drive.
Okay.
And then, but yeah, I mean, got there, and once again, you get there and you really don't know what's this all about. It's pro ball. Here we go. And
right.
Start practicing, and Roy Cutright and Wayne Ashbury. Roy Cutright was, I believe, the head baseball coach at Pikeville College at the time. And then Wayne Ashbury was the head baseball coach at Union College, I believe, at the time. And they were our pro coaches. And from there, it's practice and.
Well, I mean, like, were you a shortstop? Were you a center fielder? What were they?
I got like Coach Crean. You'll go back to Coach Crean and say, I was probably naturally an outfielder, and I felt like, and the guy who I'll remember it. He asked me, what I would like to come in as, an infielder or an outfielder, and I told him I like to play the outfield. I didn't want to. I felt good about playing the outfield in pro ball. And that's what I did.
Show off that hose.
Yep. I loved it. Loved to try to throw people out and all that good stuff, So my earbuds are a little bit messed up. But yeah, so I came in as a center fielder.
Okay.
And
can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, I was just, these earbuds sometimes you slip. Sorry.
Okay. So you're coming in, you're working out as a center fielder. Are you feeling like, how is the competition? How are you feeling like you're fitting in? I mean, I'm looking at your stats here. My man had a strong year. Batted 300, 303, 5 dings, 10 doubles, 49 hits, and 169 at bats. So, man, I mean, can't do much more than that, right?
No, it was a good year. It was a good first year. I came in feeling good. The competition, I mean, it was a really, the guys that were there were, I mean, a lot of them were D1 guys, and some D2, or some D2, and really good players. And here we are again. You're looking at these guys, you're going, man, why aren't these guys somewhere else? Because they're really talented.
One of the things that I found out when I played some indie ball too in the Frontier and played some collegiate summer ball leagues, but coming up, I always thought, if you're not Division I, like whatever, but there are some guys that can absolutely ball at NAIAs, at D3s, at D2s that you've never heard of, and they can absolutely play ball, and they end up in pro ball too. It's just you never know. Baseball's a crazy game like that. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, you're okay. You're well said. It's amazing the talent that you see, and competition wise for my spot at the time, it might have been a little bit of competition, but I came out came out pretty strong. So I kind of solidified that, I was going to be the center fielder,
And lead off, or were you batting?
What's that?
Are you hitting lead off, 3, 2? Where they got you?
Man, I think, buddy, I wasn't lead off. I was in the top 1, 2, or 3, maybe 2. I think I might have hit second.
Where did you like to hit?
I love to hit lead off.
Me too.
I loved lead off because, and you go back to most of the coaches probably say, I was a leadoff guy, but I never walked.
Me too.
I was swinging the bat.
So there was baby.
The strikeout walkout ratio might have been a little.
Didn't quite look right.
Doesn't quite look right, So
hey, but my man was hitting some bombs.
Yeah, we hit. We got hit some bombs, and I would tell you that one of the we were playing. Maybe it might have been it was almost like a preseason game. I think we played a couple like preseason start to the season games. One was I think up in Ashland, and man, I hit this ball. It was a line drive about 3 feet over the second baseman's head, and it maybe one hopped the wall from I hit that ball, probably the hardest ball I might have ever hit. That one, and then the ball that Coach Crean was talking about at Furman.
Yeah.
That was probably the hardest ball I ever hit in my life.
I can still remember the hardest balls I've ever hit too. There's just something in your mind, like, ooh, that was different. Yeah.
And but yeah, I remember that, and then there was a play that Coach Cutright. It was probably 2 or 3 games in, and one of those Texas League doubles. A little blooper to right field, and I turned it in from a single into a double, and he was so fired up. He saw that, he's like, "Yeah, this guy is." And he even I remember him even commented it in the paper. I don't think I might have the clip somewhere, but still got a lot of clips, and I was looking through some of them when I was showing you pictures. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that did happen, So, but it was a hustle double, and he was fired up about it, and I think I started out with a 10 or 12 game hit streak. Wasn't always a multiple hit game, but it was at least I had a hit, and pretty much a lot of the first few weeks, which allowed me to become an all-star. I ended up playing in the first all-star game. Yeah. That was over in Chillicothe, Ohio, and that was a cool experience.
It's got to be. Are there affiliated scouts sniffing around at these games? Or?
There was a few, I think. Once again, excuse me. I really never paid attention too much to that. I kind of go back to our team, and I'll probably comment this later. Great players, great team, but our bus rides and our the off the field and even on the field was almost like the movie Bull Durham.
Oh yeah, buddy.
If you look at those bus rides and just the way we communicated and enjoyed each other, and we kind of made it fun in a sense, and not really all about this is about me. We kind of made it about the team, which was pretty cool because you don't see that very often. Because a lot of times, it's pro ball. You're trying to make it to the next level,
right?
And you can become an individual pretty quick, and because you want to do well, and you want those scouts that are, if they're there, you want them to see you perform,
100%.
and then. But I felt like, a lot of the other guys felt like if we were winning in this game, they're going to come see it because they know that we must be pretty good. Yeah. Must have some pretty good players if we're winning. Yeah. And we were winning, early on. We won, I think we won the first half. End up getting beat in the end by Parkersburg, West Virginia. They were a good team too. That was kind of our rival team back in the day.
Yeah. I got a couple things here. First, I think I totally agree with you on Bull Durham. I think that's the most accurate representation of minor league life that there ever was, and still it holds up to this day. Another thing I wanted to ask: were you content just to still be playing, or were you thinking like, man, I really am trying to get my foot into affiliated right now?
Content on playing. I really never thought about unaffiliated. Well, I did. I guess I did. I think about it, but I never let it affect me. In a sense, I just felt like that team I was playing on was the team that I should be playing on at the time, and I'm going to do the best I can and be the best player that I can, and maybe there's an opportunity out there if somebody see you. And
I mean, you just got to be grateful to have another summer under the sun, you know.
Yep.
I mean,
I was very grateful for it, because you were, I was, I said you were I was kind of going back to the, from senior to the pro there in between. I was a little down. I wasn't saying I was really happy. You were a little down and didn't quite understand why. But you made the most of it, and went in there and started getting after. Now I will say that I did, I was married. I got married right before I went to play pro ball, with McAllister and Caden's mother. Amy.
So that, I mean, was there a pull to start a family around that time too, and that kind of a thing?
No, not really. It was just one of those things where we felt at the time it was time. It was we weren't ready for a family. We were just kind of doing our thing, and and
are there any like fun or important experiences from that first year in pro ball that you feel like you need to touch on?
So we would go to Chillicothe, Ohio. Okay, it was kind of a cool thing, and
were the Paints the team then?
Chillicothe Paints.
Yeah.
Yes. So we'd go there, and every time we went there, we stayed at the VA hospital. Okay, that's where we, not a hotel, but we stayed at the VA hospital.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So every morning we wake up. It's like 5:30, 6 a.m. There's some dude in the quad. He's got a boom box on his shoulder, and he's singing "Baby Got Back" every single morning.
I wasn't expecting that to go there.
What is this? This is, and so, but some of our guys, the pitchers of our guys, I know they were probably still up because they weren't pitching the next day. I'm sure they were still out partying and doing whatever they were doing. But, us position players, we had to be in bed at a decent time because we had to play, so.
Yeah, right. For sure.
But anyway, that's a, interesting experience. But we end up, something interesting about Kentucky, it kind of going back to where we stayed at the Carriage Hotel in Paintsville, and we would, about 2 or 3 weeks in, maybe a little bit longer, we got booted out. Not because we were a problem, but I believe there were some financial things going on within the system, because it's an early system. For whatever reason, we got booted out. We had to go stay. We went and stayed at. We had like 6 to a room at this complex, So we end up, there was like, was it 6 or maybe 4? Because there was like 4 beds, and we're staying together, and that was pretty interesting and pretty wild.
Yeah.
So it kind of got the guys on the team, because I said the first half we played really well. And the second half, things were kind of weird, I think it was obviously the inside, there was something going on in the upper office that
things are known to get weird in indie ball. Absolutely. I was with a team one time that didn't pay anyone for weeks and weeks, and eventually the league folded. Stuff like that happens in indie ball.
Well, it happened in Kentucky where I was at too. I mean, that's what was happening as well. We got paid, ended up getting paid, but they weren't paying some other bills or whatever. I don't know the whole thing, but it was crazy. So you start hearing about it. You're like, man, are we going to even have a team? Are we going to even are we going to play? I was really surprised after what went on, because the coaches left. Coach Cutright and Ashbury, they end up leaving. In the second half of the season, I don't know if you remember the name, Johnny LeMaster was our coach. Johnny LeMaster got drafted by the Pirates out of high school and played the big leagues with the Pirates, shortstop, called him the Long Rifle. Very, very good. He's awesome. Really probably the best BP thrower I've ever hit off in my life. He never, if you said, Coach, I want it on the outside, he would put it on the outside every single time. And you would hit, whatever you're doing. I mean, he was awesome. And the best thing about him, too, is he got kicked out of, several games.
Very guy.
I remember him getting kicked out. We were up at Parkersburg. I remember him getting kicked out of a game before the game even started.
Oh, man.
He even said, I was in the on-deck circle. I'm sitting there warming up. He's like, Stash, he goes, be ready for this. I'm like, oh, boy, what's going to happen here? Next thing you know, must have been a long time problem with the umpire back in the day. Old feud. LeMaster, you're out of here. I'm like, what? So our bus driver ended up being our first base coach.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
He was our first base coach. It's like it goes back to Bull Durham, all the Bull Durham. I was like, what is going on here? So interesting story. So the inner it's not always hunky dory, but it was still kind of fun.
But through it all, you had a great season. Hit 300. Yeah. I mean, you hit 300 in pro ball. It's something special,
Mm-hmm.
So they bring you back for another year after this?
They did. Yeah, we got back for the second year, and it started off pretty good. New coach Palmer Minch. He came from I believe he was Southeast Missouri State coach, an old time coach. He was the head coach, and kind of older guy, little different mentality. Started out playing pretty good, and then there was I don't remember where it was at, but there was somewhere down the road in that season, that first part of the season, that you hit that wall. You hit that baseball funk, and your mindset was just you were struggling. Offensively struggling. Not really defensively, just offensively struggling. Could hit my way out of a wet paper bag at the time, it was hard. And
what did you test that to? Because you hit 300 your first year, and what do you got here the second year?
Well, we had some different.
216. Sorry.
Yep, it was a struggle. We different players, a lot of different players on that team. Billy Bryce, myself, and there was a few. Jimmy Ryan, I think, was there for a little bit, and then he ended up going to the Erie Sailors, our shortstop. I think it was just a situation where I think the team was struggling. We weren't winning a whole lot.
Just wasn't a great environment.
The environment was just kind of tough. And I felt about halfway through that year, All-Star break, I was like, you know what? This is probably it.
Really?
And I remember playing.
You could feel it.
I could feel it. Yeah, I could feel it. And I ended up being, people probably don't know this very well, but I was a player coach. I got asked to be a player coach for about a week.
Really?
I only let it last about a week. Because that was hard for me becoming a player, and then all of a sudden I'm going to go kind of like, I guess, did Pete Rose do it?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
kind of like a Pete Rose thing, but a little different level. But so I was coaching first base a little bit as a player, and also playing in the game. And that's Palmer Minch is the one that, he asked me to do it, because he knew I was struggling, so maybe I could, get myself mindset into a little bit of coaching, but also play a little bit.
Yeah.
I did that for just a short period of time, and I said, that's it.
No,
I went to him and I said, I'm done. I can't, we're going home.
Really?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we left, said our goodbyes, and hung the spikes up, and that
So
was
what
it.
was there? So you knew that baseball was done for you as a player in this moment.
Done. Yep.
What so this was easier than I thought, or it sounds easier than what I imagined it was going to be. I didn't know how you walked away from the game. So you
Mm-hmm.
walked away on your own accord here.
My own accord. Yep.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
Any regrets with not really?
No regrets.
Interesting.
No, because the way my life, I believe at the time was, I was married, and we felt like we're going to go back home, and we're going to get life together, and away from the playing part of the of the game, and go back and find jobs and
Yeah.
get into coaching, and
So
that's
so you didn't go through this period of I feel lost and I don't know what to do next.
oh,
That's
nope,
interesting.
not really.
Cool. Well, good.
No, because I think I had help because I was married at the time, so there was a companion there and really helped get through it, get through the trials and tribulations of, hey man, this is it. We
So
are
so
done.
so then you moved back to Springfield,
We moved to Springfield. Mm-hmm.
and then what? So what's the plan?
Well, the plan is to obviously get a job, and the wife at the time to get a job, and so we both got jobs. I got a job at Springfield High, being security. It was 1994, and the fall of '94 is when I started at Springfield High, and got the job as security. I had no idea who anybody was. I really didn't know anybody.
Did you start coaching right away?
Yeah. Well, Mark Hale, Coach Hale, is my brother-in-law. Because I married his wife's sister. So yeah. So Mark, was a big help. Getting my foot in the door at Springfield High. He was teacher. He was a biology teacher. So at that time, and started coaching basketball for Clark Barnes. I needed a freshman coach.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Needed a freshman coach. So I started coaching basketball, Mark and I, and then was just a volunteer. I think I just started out as a volunteer with Jim Steinwert and those guys my first year, I believe, in '94 there, and just went out and just wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be around it, get back,
Yeah.
spikes are up, and I wanted to get back into it because I knew that the next phase of my life, I wanted to coach, and I wanted to be in the school system. I wasn't a teacher, but I did security. Kind of like being a teacher at times, though, but
Yeah, absolutely.
you get to see all phases of the world.
Yeah. And then, so did you end up being? What I knew you as the JV coach. Were you freshman JV coach kind of for a while?
I was freshman coach, and Mark Hale was a JV coach.
Okay.
And Mark moved up. Mark moved up to be one of Jim's assistants, varsity, and I moved into the JV. And Brett Trumper came in. That's when Trumper came in and was a freshman coach.
Okay, gotcha. So
I'm pretty sure that's how it went.
So then I'd love to hear about some of your favorite stories, some funny memories from coaching at Springfield High. What I'd love to hear some about the staff. When I think about those guys, I think of obviously Coach Steinwart, Coach Elliott, Coach Burke, Coach Trumper, Coach Hale, those guys. Let's just hear some of your Springfield High stuff.
Yeah, what a great group of guys. Obviously Jim Steinwart was, the catalyst and the man, the head coach. Yep. Gave me an opportunity to didn't even know who I was, and then gave me an opportunity to come volunteer and coach, and through Coach Hale and then Coach Owens, Brad Owens was coming around, Trumper, and Coach Burke was there. He was coming. Just it might have been Coach Burke as a freshman coach. Don't quote me on that, but it was just, it kind of runs together a little bit. But all those guys,
he did.
Man, what's that?
He did.
He did.
He was definitely the freshman coach for years.
For years, yeah. But yeah, those guys were just, the coaching staff was really, really, really good staff. Just a lot of knowledge, and and great to be around, especially starting out as a young coach. I just coming out of pro ball and thinking that, pretty wiry, pretty fired up, and but trying to understand what the program was really about. And you found out pretty quick that, it was there. The roots were there, and Coach Steinwert was very, very stringent and very, he was tough and on the ball, and I wanted to be a part of that. And then and just the kids that all you kids that came through early on it was really really cool, really fun to be around, and knowing that there's some you guys were wanting to play and wanting to get better, and that really made it exciting too. And we weren't always good early on, as a team, but I think we made it good because we worked at it. We worked hard, and I had a lot of fun times. Schlip Park. Schlip Park days were great. We weren't at Schlip Park. Because remember, we were over at Jefferson Park, a lot as a young group, practicing on grass, and the varsity was out at Vredenburg Park.
Just a patch of grass too.
Yep. And at some point in time, it was probably 2 or 3 years in, I said, man, and Dan O'Connell was the head of Schlip Park at the time, Southwest. Yeah. And I said, man, and I started helping take care of the field a little bit in that time because I loved, taking care of ball diamonds and being around it. Yeah. And so I asked him, I said, is there any way we can move these keep the, because they had 80-foot bases. Can we put 90-foot bases in this and play games here? There's probably going to be a lot of home runs. Man, there wasn't very many home runs hit out of that ballpark as freshman.
Right.
It was a shorter game, but we ended up playing a lot of our games when I was the freshman coach because Brady Burke. Did Brady move up at some point? I'm sorry, I get a little bit confused on all those guys where we were at the time. But
doesn't matter.
But no, the Schlip Park days were great. I know you were part of the Schlip Park days. Yep, you lived right there. You lived.
I did.
Right there. You were there all the time, and that's really where when the Kneedler kids. I remember those kids when they were coming in right there. They were little guys, and they came in to they were to be they're on the team, and man, they would stay after practice and work at it, but they were so little. And so, but you knew that they had it up here.
Oh yeah.
They had it up here to get it. And then, obviously the end is, we all know what happened.
This is the perfect time
after that, but
this is the perfect time to play some Justin clips then.
Okay.
So I'm going to play some Justin Knadler clips here. Obviously Justin being the 10-year pro guy, Springfield High School in Lincoln Land, Miami of Ohio. This one's going to be Justin Stashy as a coach.
Well, I still attribute Stash to this day as one of the most influential coaches I've probably had. He was our freshman coach, and so up until I got into high school, coaches were, my dad and so rec league coaches, and Jason and I never really started playing travel baseball until that junior pride team. So our freshman year. So when Stash came in and we got to meet Stash, it was like the first time that I had a coach that kind of emulated that enthusiastic college player or that pro player mentality.
Yeah.
And it just kind of widened my eyes. Like, okay, this is how a baseball player is supposed to act. He dressed the part, he looked the part, he spoke the part. He wasn't that much older than us. We were obviously I was 15 years old at the time, but I think he was just fresh out of his little stint with college and pro ball, or whatever that was. But so it was easy to relate to him, and so it was almost like you were just looking up to him and like, okay, that's who I need to emulate right there. And so it was very cool to have him around. So,
a cool clip.
Yeah, it's a real cool clip.
Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's
Yep.
Yeah, what a special it's a special player there. Coach, him talking about, relating to the kids, when they, at that time, I felt that I was young, I was young and enthusiastic and wanted to not show up, but show these guys, this is what you can be, you can do this. And, coaching, the team part of it and coaching, the individual part of it and just drill and technique and mechanics and little things and just because those are the things you need to start out with, and then expand. You expand from there. And I felt that I felt pretty good about where I was at as a coach early on. It was the right place for me, to develop young kids, young men to see them develop and get to the next level, and a lot of them did and some of them didn't, but that's part of the deal. But, for whatever reason, but those were really kind words from Justin. That was really, really, really nice of him. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. I want to echo what Justin said about you being kind of like a college pro level coach. I obviously went on to play some of both of those things. And looking back, I think, man, we had I really think in another life, you probably should have been a pro level coach and that could have been a path for you. But yeah, I mean, you were a pro level guy as a JV coach in high school at Springfield High. So we were pretty damn lucky to have you around. All right, next clip. JU, he was my guy.
Yeah, he was definitely the guy, and I've already kind of touched on it. But you look at him, you're like, that's a baseball player. And so when he obviously when his playing career came to an end, just like it did for myself and you and everybody else, you want to stay involved in the game, and so he took it on to coach, and I think he knew what it took to be a good coach, and so a good coach is there for his players, and I think he was at the point in his career or in his life, I guess, where he didn't have a ton of other commitments, so it's easy to give that time to players. And even when he probably was married and then started having his own kids, he still was able to give as much as he possibly could. And he just related to the players he was coaching. So to be able to teach the game, it's a special gift, and he certainly had it.
Well, oh yeah, special gift.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Well, reiterating on that, I mean, I look back and when you got kids like JU and Jason and you, Blake, you get the Greg Taylors and and the Mifflin. I mean, I can just go down the road and just name. It's just you got young kids that at the time that really wanted to learn and play the game. It was which helped me as a coach because I knew that. But I want you want to give 100%. You want to be there for them. We want them to get better, and not just on the field, but off the field, as well. And I felt at the time, like like Jay, you said, I had the time. I was very fortunate to have the time to be able to commit and give the kids and all the players, that played through Springfield High and summer or whatever, just give them the time that they deserve. Because I felt like when I was growing up, we talked about that earlier. I had some of that. They gave me the time to make me better, and I wanted to give back and make sure that we got to do this. If you want to get better and you want to be the best, we've got to work at it. And
I love that. All right, next clip. This is Justin, and this is Stashy as a player.
So one of my fondest memories, and we actually spoke about it the other day at the Springfield Sports Hall of Fame, but watching Brad Owens and Jaime Stash turn in double plays at the Springfield High baseball camps. And both of them were, obviously, not too far removed from playing themselves, but just in awe. And so, he had a cannon, an absolute cannon. He had unbelievable hands. Like his hands. Yeah. I'm much bigger than Jaime Stash, but he's got bigger hands than I do. Like the guy.
Humongous.
Yeah. And so, the fundamentals. I remember a story when we were at Schlip Park, and he threw it over the scoreboard from the right field foul line. And at Langford Ballpark, and there was a grounds crew guy that was walking by, and he kind of goes, he's like, "Man, did you see that?" And he's like, "That guy just threw a home run." And he used a couple other explicitives, when he was describing it. But that became a challenge for the rest of us. Like, I think I could do that.
Showing off that arm. You always love showing off that arm, man.
Yeah, I was. I had it, so you wanted to make sure that everybody knew that you had it, at the time, and just teaching that, it doesn't happen overnight, but you get stronger and you work at it, and that's it was fun. Those were some really, really fun days.
Oh yeah,
and I'll never forget those days. I mean, even though I've been out of the game for a while, just obviously the last few weeks was really kind of thinking back and reminiscing on some of the really, really good times, and I had a lot of great times with all the teams.
I'm so glad you and I are getting a chance to go back and look at your career and your life in baseball and talk about it all, man. You're a special guy to a lot of people. My next clip here is Stashy as a teacher from Justin.
It was really great, and then I can still do it myself, but because he was freshly removed from playing, and I don't even know how many years that was, he could still demonstrate, and I think that's what was so cool about him as a coach is, okay, he could talk it, he could teach it, he could preach it, but he could also demonstrate it. So when when it came to being an infielder and actually getting down and having his hands out front and showing you how to cap the ball and funnel it into your belly and take the crow hop and just all the little fundamentals, and he did stress the little things. You take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. And so him being able to demonstrate was something that I learned when I started teaching. I was like, look, man, if I can't demonstrate this to a kid, how do I expect him to do it?
Yeah, I totally agree with him. It was always incredible that you were able to demonstrate everything you said so well. I mean, it's one thing if like some out of shape 40, 50-year-old guy kind of slothily shows you something. It's another thing if someone is, getting down in that real athletic stance, fielding a ball and coming up and really firing it and showing you stuff. So absolutely.
Well, I felt that, personally, that was a big part of my coaching early on, even later on too, is I felt like if I'm going to coach these and teach it, I need to be able to do it and show them. I want to show them how I want to be able to show what I'm talking about, and that was important to me as a coach to get through to the young kids to understand by showing. And thank God at the time I could still do it. I was still in good enough shape to be able to do those type of things. And that was a part of my coaching forever. All my years of coaching.
Absolutely.
I felt like I could still do it. So.
And you could, yeah. Next one is called. So it's funny. Ju, this is Stashy Dip In. Here we go.
Well, there's a couple, but one of my favorite ones was I think it was freshman year or sophomore year, and we lost to SHG, and he came to the practice the next day, and wasn't supposed to, but he had a dip in his mouth, or tobacco or chew or whatever it was.
He always did.
And obviously it wasn't allowed, for us players to do it, but
right.
It was something that people would sneak, and I of course never did it. But he goes, "You guys see this thing in my mouth right now?" And he goes, "It's number one cardinal sin in baseball. But if we ever effing lose to Griffin again, you guys are going to be running so much." And I mean, it was the perfect speech to kind of motivate us. Obviously the rivalry between Springfield High and SHG was a big one, and we went out there and we laid an egg the day before, and so that was his way of kind of motivating us, and he was certainly good at that. One of the most energetic, enthusiastic coaches I've ever had, and it certainly was something that I learned to do myself.
Yeah.
Last clip here, and then I'll let you roll. This is Ju Humbabe.
Mr. Humbabe. He was always Humbabe. And I remember Jim Steinwert. We had at Springfield High, we had that message board, and he'd always put stuff up there. And
Yep.
he had some funny out of a magazine or a newspaper clip, and it was a bunch of baseball players kind of sitting in a tree, I think it was, and they were all saying "hum babe," and he put above it, Steinwood had put above it, the Stash family reunion. So to me, it was just kind of funny because it was the first time I'd ever really heard, the phrase "hum babe," because Stash was always saying that. It was all.
That's perfect. I remember it. I remember the hum babes. I remember
Hum
them.
babe. Mm-hmm. Been a while since I've said a hum babe. But,
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I've got, unless you've got anything, do you have anything to add on either of those? Sorry.
No, I think that's wonderful.
Okay.
I mean, it's yeah.
Some good memories, right?
Yeah, great memories. Great memories.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple more here and I'm gonna chime in a story after this, but this is gonna be John Chisholm telling a story here, and
boy.
Chisholm was a funny guy. He's a good storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
One of the funny things that we still say to each other to this day, John Chisholm and Jason Smith are still two close friends of mine, and we still say some stashy things, like in like a funny way. So anyway, this one's called "Rah Rah Ree Ree." Here we go.
Hey Blake, so I got to tell you about two of my favorite Jaime Stash stories. The first one was when we were playing a game, I forgot against who, but we were so loud and obnoxious on the bench, we were cheering like maniacs. It was almost like girls softball vibes, like we were chanting, we were doing all kinds of stuff. But we would go out there in the field and we would just crap the bed. And every inning we'd come in and we'd be loud and obnoxious, and then we would go out there and just boot routine ground balls and fly balls. The pitcher couldn't throw strikes. So finally, Coach Stash pulls us all to the side. You can tell he's kind of pissed off. And he says, guys, you can't just talk a big game. You got to play a big game. You can't just be sitting here on the bench all rah, rah, ree, kick him in the knee. You got to go out there and do it. And we all just kind of looked at each other and tried the hardest not to laugh. But it was one of the funniest sayings, and it stuck with us for the rest of our high school. And even into later times, I still use it to this day.
So I remember that, the rah rah ree ree, kick him in the knee. And I remember one passionate speech of yours, and it was so interesting because you would be so animated sometimes and so fired up that like I would, as a player, you go back and forth between I'm scared, but then you'd say something silly so that you'd be laughing. Like on the inside, you wouldn't want to laugh to your face. But anyway, I don't remember where we were. I think we got our butts beat by Lincoln or something. But after the game, you were on one, and you were like just being very stashy, and hands were moving around, and you were like, I see what's going on, guys. I see what's going on. You guys trying to make old Stashy look bad. Trying to make Stashy not get a head coaching job. I see what's going on here. Huh? Not going to happen. And like, inside, I was just losing it. And I don't know. You were the best, man.
I actually, when you just brought that, I actually remember that.
Yeah.
I do. I remember that. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember that time, and that's funny. That's interesting. Funny that you all remember those
funny things, right? That we remember,
intense moments, and I know I was a lot of breath after games, just reiterating every moment and everything that needed to be said, and probably way overboard at times, but you know what? That's the way it was, and that's how we were going to do it. And
it was perfect.
Yeah, it was great. I remember. Yeah, I'll tell that story later on once we get to later on in this. But that was motivation. I was always trying to motivate, and I enjoyed every minute of I look back at after games and before games, after games, trying to get it motivated before the game, and the best thing was, if we have a good infield outfield, I remember though, if we're out there, we have a good infield outfield, when things are good, you feel good about yourself. You always want to feel good when you're going into a game, even though, it may not turn out the right way, but But yeah, I always, the motivation part of it and the long-winded speeches at the end of games.
Loved them.
Oh
Baby.
boy. Oh
Loved them.
boy. Yeah. Fun.
Well,
Mhm.
we're, unless you have anything to say about it, I'd like to move on to when you became the head coach of Southeast and how that kind of came to
Mhm.
fruition and happened. So,
Well, before you go on, I just want to say, thank you to JU, thank you to John Chisholm, Blake. You guys. Remember those stories? They bring me back to thinking about some of the things that went on. I obviously don't remember them all, but I remember if I see a player, if I see somebody, if I'm back home and I see somebody, I always usually remember them, which is really, really cool. And but what a great Springfield High was great to me. Jim Steinwert was great to me. He was one of the best. That's where I got my really coaching started, and I owe a lot to him. And Hale and Owens and all those guys I got to coach with, and then all the players that have come, that came through. Such really, really great talent that come through there. Not, you didn't know it at the time. You guys probably didn't know it, but you guys were a lot of kids that came through Springfield High were very special to me. I know they were very special to Coach Steinwert, even though we all, every coach has, they get fired up and they do their thing. And, but we really felt, good about what we were doing as a program for you guys. And you guys coming back and saying especially about me right now, it really means a lot. It means a lot. I feel very, very honored and very, 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 very touched to be able to be a part of your guys' lives at that stage in your life. Even at this stage in your life too. You guys are coming back and you remember those things, and it's really, 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 really cool. And I'm very, very touched, very honored.
It's an honor to be sitting here with you, man. A lot of the lessons that you passed down to me, to a lot of us, we're now passing down, to our kids, to players that we coach too. So I think that probably is stirring up some memories of you too, and a little more gratitude and appreciation, for the coaches that you had. So are you ready to move on to Southeast?
Yes, let's move on.
Cool. So eventually you felt like you wanted to have your own program, I imagine, and this spot opened up and you applied, and you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I applied. Don Heron was the head coach at that time, and Tyson Lindekugel was his assistant. And I actually the first year I went over there, I helped out. I was the JV guy. The first year, I think it might have been 2000. So I left Springfield High, and then went over there to be the JV coach the first year. And then Don was leaving, and Tyson, he was leaving. He was going to do his lawn care service. So he got out of teaching, and he, basically put my name in, and went to Larry Cheney was the guy at the time, and the athletic director, and Baron Robinson was the principal, and we went in and interviewed, and they gave me the job, and it was a really cool feeling, because that was that's what your ultimate goal is, and as an assistant, you're going through, and you want to be that guy. You want to see what it's like on the top and running your own program. And I felt like but going back to before he got there, Jim, they gave us reins for like the freshmen and all that to do our thing, which helped me become a head coach, which was cool. But Southeast, but I had started before that in the summertime. That's the Stars were in there too. Before I became the head coach, these guys were. I started with the Stars. They were 14, I believe.
Hey, I got a Henry Hurwitz clip. How Stashy became the coach of the Stars. Want to play it?
There we go. Mm-hmm.
Let's go, Henry Hurwitz. Boom.
Yeah, so it was funny. And Stash probably remembers this story better than I probably tell it. So there were, as you remember, travel ball is a lot different ball game in today's world than it was back then. Back then, there was a couple travel teams in the area. And there were all-star teams at the end of the year that, you'd play on. So like a lot of the guys in our age group had like played together, and there was one travel team when they were like 12 that a couple guys played on. And so a couple dads got together. My dad, Ben Vahovic's dad, Ted Seifert, so Trav's dad, Brian Willie's dad got together and kind of started talking about, let's pull some of these guys together that had played together in these all-star teams. Yeah. And believe it or not, our first coach actually was supposed to be Tim Elliott.
Really?
Yep. So Tim Elliott was supposed to be our coach, and I'm pretty sure had kind of agreed to do it. And then, kind of had some we hadn't played together, but it was like in that fall of that year before we were going to play together that summer. And decided, hey, timing wasn't right for whatever reason. And he reached out to a couple of dads and said, hey, I got this young guy who's, great baseball coach, would love to do it. Would you guys be interested in it? And I think, the dads met with him, and right away we're like, yeah, this is going to be a good fit. And so that's how Stashy ended up in our
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And it ended up being, and obviously I know Tim a little bit. I'd done some lessons and a couple of things, some baseball camps and stuff when I was a kid when he was around. And obviously, great coach, great guy.
Yeah.
But Stash obviously was just a perfect fit for us.
Yeah.
Because, unbelievable guy, fun to be around. Yeah. So that's how it kind of.
Okay. All right. Henry Hurwitz taking us through how you became the coach of the Stars.
Henry Hurwitz, yes, sir. A little bit on that as far as Timmy Elliott was supposed to be the head coach. I think Henry's pretty spot on with most of that. So Ted Seifert is the one, I think he called Travis's dad. He called, and we had a sit down. I went to his house, had a sit down meeting, and met him for the first time. And whoa, Ted Seifert was about 6'3" or 6'4".
Mountain of a man. And rest in peace.
Yeah, God rest his soul, man. What an unbelievable man that was.
Absolutely.
And I shook his hand, and I'm looking at his hand, and he's got like 3 fingers, and big dude. He's a construction guy. His own construction. So, those guys lose fingers all the time, and keep going. But I'm thinking, whoa, what am I getting myself into here, man? This is. So we sat down, we talked, and Ted Seifert was very, very intimidating. I was a young, just coming out of college. Well, not really out of college, but I was still young and was wanting to coach and have a summer team. And Mike, I didn't have a skin in the game because my kid, Caden, he was like 4 or 5 years old. Callister was 6, I think. They were really young. So I had no kids to coach. And I was like, yeah, this would be great to do if I got the time, and the kids are young, and I want him to be around. I wanted him to be around good players and good teams, and travel and have some fun. But I also, I obviously didn't really know what the team was about. I didn't really know these kids at all. So we, Ted and those guys, he end up hiring me to be the coach, and we go out and see the guys for the first time. And I was like, oh, okay, nothing. I wasn't talking about, but it was just you could see that these guys need discipline. They need something here, And we were, willing to do it, willing to give them the time to become baseball players.
Yeah, and I talked to Henry earlier today, and he gave me some of the names on that roster. So I'm seeing from Rochester, Ben Vahovic, Andrew Stellan, from Lanphier, Kyle Fitzpatrick, from Jacksonville, Corey Bunner, from Southeast, Hurwitz, Travis Seifert, Brian Willie, Colin Wilson, Jason Thomas, Brad Juronsky, Brad Sarantz from Petersburg, and then eventually Zach Stead and Ryan Hipke played with you guys for a little bit, maybe a summer.
They did. Yep,
And
absolutely.
he said there are a few more names in there, kind of scattered, but those were kind of the core.
Yeah, Corey Anderson,
stars.
Matt Miller, is it Miller from Raymond? A couple of those guys played with us too. Auburn, Corey Anderson played with us. Actually, Casey Erickson pitched a game for us too.
Really?
Yeah, he did. He pitched a game for an American Legion ball late in the game when these guys.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we were a Legion at the time, but the Legion director wouldn't let him wouldn't let him for birth certificate. I mean, not what birth certificate, but as far as how many games he played with us, he wouldn't let him travel with us to go to the tournament. But that was kind of a weird deal. But he did pitch one game for us, and we won.
Really?
But that was late. That was when they were Legion ball. But early on, all those kids, Brad's, when those kids were, they were very young, and and at the time, I didn't really know much about travel baseball in Springfield. I was coaching you guys and at Springfield High and the young kids, and at the time, and then when I took over, this summer league before I become the head baseball coach, a few years before that, and these kids were really raw. I mean, Henry and Trav, there's talent there, but they were really raw with the game. But you knew that, when I saw them, man, we got a lot of work to do, but we're willing to do it, and we're going to get it done. And Rob Telger, I don't know if he's a teacher over at Springfield High. I know Rob. Rob was my assistant. What a great dude that guy was. I mean, he still is one of my best friends. But yeah, he was a big help with that, with talent wise and showing things. And but that group was.
I gotta pause. I got another Herbert story that ties right into this.
Okay.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, I go back to like summer ball and Stashy on some stories like sometimes coaches don't always engage with the kids when they're on those summer trips. You're always they're maybe going out and doing some other things and staying to themselves. And that was just never it was Stashy, man. He was really close with all of our parents, but man, when we'd be out in the courtyard playing wiffle ball or doing different things, he'd always be with us. He'd be going to the putt places and the batting practice places and the go-kart places, and he'd be right there in the mix with us. And one thing I do want to say is he had an assistant coach with us during summer ball that I want to shout out to because he put a lot of time and effort into us too. And I'm sure Stashy will tell you about him in his pod, is Rob Telger. And those two guys, they were just so engaged in how they hung out with us during the summer. And, like I remember back we were in a downpour in Danville, Illinois, for like 14 or 15 years old. And tournament, I think, got washed, but we had to stay the night in Danville. And they're out there like in this field next to our hotel, and they're playing football with us in the rain, and they're right there with us, right? So they were just, unbelievable people because they cared about us. As far as like funny stories, man, have a bunch of them. But
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one of them. It was we were playing, and Stash will probably give you more details on this game if you wanted to. But we were playing this team called, and we talk about it every year when we get together. We get together around the holidays. Some years are better than others with Stash and her, but. We were playing this team, and they're the Jefferson City Redbirds. I still remember this game, and it's one of those games you can think back and think through everything that happened. And it was like in a late Sunday game, end of the tournament, and it was a close game. And then apparently the whole weekend, like leading up to this, we as players, we were 16, 17 years old. We're calling Rob Telger. We're calling him Robbie T. And apparently that had been bubbling under the surface for a while for Stash. He had some pent up aggression going on it, and he didn't like it, but he hadn't told us yet. And we ended up losing the game by like 1 or 2 runs. It was a really intense game. Like people were getting into it, players were getting into it, coaches were getting into it, our parents were getting into it. One of those type games is, I'm sure you've seen those. And I remember he took us down the right field line. And, man, I remember to this day, and we still laugh about it, because he was in our faces, man. And he had those fingers going, that big index finger. And he's like, "You do not call him Robbie T." And I mean, in our face and just chewing us, man, like for a good 20 minutes. Like, I mean, he's busting vocal cords probably at this point. It's one of those stories that just sticks with you, and it's funny, and he looks back on it and laughs a ton now. There's a bunch of other funny stories, but
So Robbie, don't call him Robbie T.
Do not call him Robbie T. No way.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry to stop you in the middle of your last story. I just thought it fit. So
that's
I'll
perfect.
let you roll next
yeah,
time.
that's perfect. Okay. Yeah, I remember that time. They were all. It was one of those things where buddy, that was disrespectful. I thought, and at the time, and Coach Telger, we were talking about it, and he was kind of getting a little bit upset. Oh, hey man, why Robbie T? Because we were close, like Henry said, we were all really close. Yeah. And I love those guys. I mean, I loved every minute with those guys. It was such a great crew, such a great team. Parents, phenomenal. I mean, it was a phenomenal experience all the way through.
Some really great families.
Yeah, great families. We never had a problem. Sometimes you can get in those deals. You get in the summer leagues, and you get some that you might have some problems. Like complaining, and all of a sudden you got the bickering, and it's not good for the team. But we never had that. We never allowed it to happen. If there was ever a problem, we would move on with and try to get somebody else. Because our parents were a close knit. When we traveled together. We stayed together, like Henry said. Coach Telger and I, we were with them. We wanted to be a part, with those guys, and they were young. And sometimes, as you get older, I'm sure that it happened. I don't know much. They venture out. You get to be 17, 18, and you're on a summer league team, and you might go out and do some things you probably shouldn't be doing. But these guys, I'm sure they did, but we never really knew about it, and I know they probably did. I'm not a fool. But the whole Robbie T thing, I remember it, man. I can still see my veins popping, through my head, because I was so disappointed at that time. We disappointed in the loss, for one thing, and then them disrespecting that I felt my assistant coach, and that's not how we were going to be. And we still joke about it, to this day. It's funny, but now you look back. But at the time, it wasn't funny. We felt like it was necessary. We needed to say something and get it nipped in the bud, like right away.
Put the troops back in line.
Put the troops back in line, baby. You know it. And and those guys were really good about that too. They knew, because I'll be honest with you. I look back too, and I don't ever remember cursing at those guys, because I was never a big cursor.
I don't remember
that. That's one thing I felt really good about, because some guys, some people can go off and, inside the huddle, and kids will go home, hey, coach said some strong words today, but I never allowed myself to do that. I was always win, lose, draw, didn't matter with that group. Every group, I always said, love you guys. Maybe not early on, but with those kids, we always loved each other. It was about, at the end, hey, love you. We'll get them the next day. And
so you had those guys for 6 or 7 years, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I had them all the way through. They were with me the whole time.
A long time for a team to be together.
I think Don had them. Well, at Southeast he had them. Those guys, but for summertime,
the Stars. Yeah, the Stars.
Yep, the Stars. Yeah, I had them from start to, when they were 13, 14, all the way through. It was that's really what a special group that was. Very special to me. Henry, and Travis and Brian and JT and Juronsky, Birdman. I mean, all those guys. Red Dog, Colin Wilson, man, what a talent!
Dog.
I mean,
Yeah.
Red Dog was the man.
Play.
Yeah, he could play. You know, all those guys could play. You know,
Yeah,
we
all
ended
of
up
them.
having Hipke and and those guys that came later in the time. But the early guys, Stalin, Andrew Stalin was with us early. Ben Bohovic, Bohovic was with us. Swansea was with. Well, Swansea came the second year, I think. I don't think he was with us the first year. I don't think. But he was great shooter. Call him Shooter. Every time he struck somebody out, he'd shoot. It was funny, man. It was great. He would strike somebody out and he'd take his finger and shoot him up. Every time. It was awesome. And he was a really good pitcher too. For a righty, he didn't throw really hard,
great.
but man, he had some stuff on it that was really, really good. So
Hey, how about we place a couple more Henry Hurwitz quotes here?
that'd
or
be
clips?
great. Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, Stash as a.
I was talking with Seif a little bit about this, and
Oh wait.
for us, there was
Player.
no difference in how Stashy handled travel versus high school.
Okay.
You probably remember. I mean, he was intense. I mean, but unbelievably fun off the field, fun on the field too. But I mean, he took it really, really seriously. And in summer, there was no drop off on that. I know some people might think summer's a little bit more laid back and things like that. But for our summer team, we had 6 dudes that were from Southeast on that team. And so I think Stashy, that's probably part of the reason why he took it so seriously, just because, from a development phase, he had more time with us during that time. But honestly, I mean, he was always, coaching us hard. Stash's big thing was, control the things you can control. And what those things were always, play the game the right way. And you probably remember that with Stash. I mean, it was always, do the little things right? Like run hard, run the bases hard. Those are the things that he really, really harped into us. And those were the things, from, hey, inside pitch, get the elbow out there, do what you got to do to get your team, on base. There was just never any letdown. And he was just always in on the fundamentals and, was just an unbelievably just great coach. I mean, couldn't have asked for somebody more just from a coaching the fundamentals of the game, but also just from a personal level, because, he knew how to talk the game too. And as somebody that he, obviously his playing career, had just ended pretty recently when we first started playing for him. And, you could relate to him too. He could sit down when you were going through that slump and kind of hit the mental pieces for you. And that was what I remember about Stashy, just on both sides. He was just amazing. He really was.
Some incredible words from Henry there. I've got a bunch more of these clips. Do you want to comment, or you want me to just rip through some more of these?
Man,
If you got something to say, please say it.
just I just look back and those guys. I mean, those are really awesome words and awesome feelings for me. I really, there's not a whole lot of words you can say, but I really appreciate him, everybody.
Yeah,
those guys they were a great group, man. It was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal time in our lives, and it was very, very cool to be able to experience that with those kids.
I'm getting the tingles right now, Stashy.
Mhm.
All right, next one is Stash is a player's coach.
Or where would you rank him amongst your favorite managers, coaches that you've had?
Yeah, it's funny because I had a lot of just coming up through Fairview in those leagues, you kind of switch coaches every other year and things like that. And so I really only had 2 long-term coaches, right? I had Stash and I had Bull. And as far as players coaches, I mean, I couldn't have played for 2 better coaches as far as from a player perspective, just because both guys were just, I mean, your basic, players coach, right? But for Stashy, obviously, there was a special relationship there because, I mean, literally every single game I played from the time I was 13 until I was 18, outside of a couple, here and there, my sophomore year, I played for Stash. So there's obviously a really, really special relationship there. Just like I said, I mean, he's at the top of the list, and, for me.
And this one is called The Amount of Time.
Yeah, and exactly, man. Trav and I talked about that a couple weeks ago. I coached for 5 years for Mikey and Aper and those guys along with Beardo. And I coached summer baseball. So, 2 months a year, and I was 21 through like 24, 25. So like the only thing I was worrying about is, what time are we out of here so I could go to a bar, and Stashy, I mean, he had, young family, wife, and, the amount of time he would put in, and it wasn't just like, like he's there. Like, dude was unbelievably engaged in everything that he was doing, from the practices to keeping up with the field. I mean, our field at Southeast, like we had just put that field in, and man, he did everything to keep that ballpark just pristine, and you're exactly right. I mean, the amount of time and effort he had to put in at that age with like all the other things he had going on was just extraordinary. And I mean, never once would say no, would always be up, additional hitting lessons, hitting us fly balls, teaching us the game. A lot of times in the summer, like we'd usually host like 1 or 2 tournaments out at Southeast, and like players would be working and doing it, but man, he'd be out there from 5 a.m. till 10:30, and coach games, okay, hey, you're in a slump, I'm going to take you down the right field line and throw you in the cage in a game. He's working the gate, he's doing all those things, man. And he did it, because he cared about, us as kids and the programs and the teams he coached. So just an extraordinary amount of time and effort, and poured his heart into it. He really did.
All right, last one. Here we go. Stashy as a player.
You mentioned his hands, and I have that written down here because and Sype will probably laugh at this if you tell him, but I always make fun of him when I shake his hands because it's like grabbing a bunch of bananas, man. Like the dude just absolute paws on him, man. Like just absolute paws. And big thing was like, and going back to his coaching style, he was not a guy that like, hey, go do this. He went out and showed you how to do it, right? Yeah. So like when he would, teaching you how to get behind a fly ball in the outfield or around a ball at shortstop to come through it. I mean, there's 4 or 5 reps where he's doing it, right? He's showing you how to do it, how your body should move, how you come, how you crow hop, how you, all those types of things. And so right then and there, you could see just like his movements and how smooth he was and how good of a he was, and just how good his arm was. I mean, the dude had just an absolute hose. And I think on one of the pods, I think maybe you and Justin or Jason, I can't remember, were telling the story about, Schlitt Park, and he's standing on the left field line and crow hops, and he can put one on top of those warehouses out there. And have seen him do that multiple times because we played at Schlitt a lot, and he'd, Stash want to show off the skills. Going back to his BP, I wanted to talk through just how he coached, because there was a lot to be said for watching somebody do it and could actually do it well to learn. But man, when it came down to BP time, it was Stashy's time. And you're 100% right, man. It'd be 20, 25, 30 minutes go by, and I always remember, being at Schlitt, and, you're 14, 15 years old, and he's hitting bombs over those trees out in left field and short, hitting Owen Marsh out there. But I remember his scream to this day. Remember that scream he'd do?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man, we just absolutely rising and just going over the trees. And you knew when Stashy was taking those daddy hacks. It was a fun, man. But, yeah, he unbelievable. You could tell. I mean, the guy just could play, and it was just a great athlete, and he was fun to watch when he'd be practicing, man, because you could tell, like, Stash was that dude when he was playing.
All right, that concludes our Henry Hurwitz clips. I really appreciate him giving us some time. I mean, he just said some amazing things about you. What does it feel like to hear, one of your former players talk about the impact that you had on him and all the other guys?
Oh, it's very special, especially
cool.
to hear that. Very cool. Yes. Go back to the little bit of that Stashy time, BPP.
Oh yeah.
I always wanted, get my hacks in. But I always wanted to go through the scenario with those kids. Any kid that, hey, 2 bunts, get them over, get them in, and show them how we're doing. This is how you do it. This is your approach.
Yeah.
And then, once things got going, we got through that. Instead of, they would get 10 to 15 hacks, and we got to get them out. Yeah, I might have got 25 or 30,
Yep.
a little extra.
I've got a comment here, so I can vividly remember how you taught hitting, and you talk about the horseshoe up here, the kind of little circle with your hands, just some movement, and it was really a very quiet setup. But what was lost on me as a 15-year-old, now I understand. I'm deeply into the hitting mechanics game. I love it, but you would tell us these really quiet and small movements, and then you would go up there, and there would be this huge leg kick, and the hands were dropping way down and pumping and uppercutting and dropping tanks over those trees. So
totally different, right?
Yeah, totally different.
Do as I say, not as I do, right?
It was perfect. It was perfect, man. Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
I want to get us back on track here. We had some awesome stuff from Henry. Is there anything more that you want to speak on with the Stars and kind of how that went for you, and any more experiences there? Or are you ready to get back to Southeast?
The Stars were, like I said, they were a special group. The families were great, great times through. And that Stars team, man, it was really cool to watch them develop. Being there inside the ropes and being there, being there all the time for them. Henry's probably, put that in a pretty good perspective on the commitment and the time commitment that
the amount of time that you put into that Southeast program and getting that field what it was. I mean, you lived there, man. Did you have a blanket and a cot there in the clubhouse?
Upstairs, I had an office upstairs with a couch in it. So I would and Ted Seifert built that for me. That was really, really nice of him. That group is just a special, they're very special, and and those words from Henry. I mean, it's they come from great families. Their parents are awesome. They were brought up very, very well. All of those kids, very respectful. Some of them had better lives than others, but we try to keep them. Everybody was treated the same. Yeah. We were a team. And that was what was really nice about that group. And they ran with it. They showed up and they ran with the program and bought in and what we were doing, what we were trying to teach. And it was really, really, really cool.
I love that. Let's go ahead and group in our Travis Seifert clips here, because he's Southeast and Stars guy too. So I'd like to, let's do our Seif stuff and then finish out our Southeast stuff. So Seif Stashy is a coach, and let me just say a little bit about Seif. He ended up playing at Parkland and Lincolnland, and I always thought that guy was a really, really high-level baseball player, an awesome shortstop. He gave so much effort. He was so athletic, and I always thought he could have kept on playing. His shoulder kind of fell apart there at the end, but he was a really high-level guy, and he doesn't get as much credit as I think he deserves. I was always really impressed by Travis Seifert. I loved playing against him. Yep. Okay, that's all I got. All right. Anyway, Stashy is a coach, Seifert.
Man, we were talking about that, and we couldn't figure out if we started at 12U or 13U. Okay. But I can remember Stashy saying that at 12U we played 13U tournaments because there was no 12U tournaments at that time.
Okay.
So that would make me think we started at 12U, but I mean, who knows? I don't know.
Right.
Okay. But Stashy so obviously he started out as our summer coach, and he just happened to not fall into it, but they had originally wanted Elliot. He was going to be our coach, and then something had happened where that didn't work out, and then Stashy came along, and he became the head coach, which, was great for me because I love Stashy, man. As a summer ball coach, he wanted to make it fun. It was about having fun, doing it right, but also, you had to win. You wanted to win because that's what keeps teams together in the long run. If you're losing, people aren't happy. So, just a good dude, man. And then high school ball, I wouldn't really say he was different with us because, man, we had him for so long in the summer, and then we just kind of meshed and went into high school with it. And I would say the biggest challenge was probably for him picking up different kids in school where he had to worry about, kids being eligible and not doing, dumb things to be ineligible. Where in summer ball, you didn't have to worry about that.
That's our first clip of Cypher. You got anything? You want me to keep on moving here?
Cypher, what a competitor, man. That kid was a competitor.
Dude.
Yeah, what a scrappy competitor. Yeah, he started out in left field. With the young in outfield, then we moved him to the infield. Yeah, he was an outfielder for a little bit, and then moved because Corey Bunner at the time was a middle infielder too. Because Henry was catching. Henry caught a little bit early on, and then finally there was somewhere in there I was like, no,
it all switched.
We're going to put Bunner. We're going to put Bunner catching. Henry's going to center field. Travis is coming to shortstop. Yeah. B. Will was always our second baseman. He was a perfect second baseman. JT was always a big guy, first baseman. So, but anyway, we moved him around, and
I love that. Next one is Cypher, Stashy, given time.
I agree 100%. I mean, I would call Stash in the summer, and he would meet me up at Southeast, and we'd do ground balls, for hours. That was always my favorite thing to do. Is I'd want to do ground balls. It's just that was what I enjoyed. And he would meet me, and we'd go do ground balls. And like I said, we'd spend hours up at the field. And at the time, I didn't understand really what he was doing or what it was taking away from him. And now having a life and kids and a job and all that stuff that now looking back on, it's like, holy cow. Like, that's a lot of time and effort put into not even your kid. You're just enjoy the game. You enjoy being on the field. And obviously he liked the kids he was doing it with because he, obviously wouldn't be out there, but it's just a lot of time, man, that you're putting out there and a lot of energy that I didn't understand at the time, but looking back on it, it's a big commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Yeah. Next one is Stashy, love to show off. Here we go. Oh, hold on. I get it? Here we go.
Oh, man, Stashy loved to show off. Let's just put it that way. He always told us he always said it's okay to have a chip on your shoulder. It's okay to have that confidence and to play with a chip on your shoulder. And you definitely have to have the confidence. And he still had it. I don't know what he was. He had to be anywhere from 34 to 38 at the time, I would assume, somewhere in there. But he had a cannon, man. He would throw it from the home plate. He'd throw it over the field at Schlitt, just with a rocket. And then the stashy scream when he would hit, when it was his turn to hit, because he always had to hit. The wah! He just let it loose. Let it loose. And we're 13, at the time. We're just looking at it, just balls flying over the trees in left field at Schlitt. Like, damn, I wish I could do that.
Right? Yeah.
It's just good. And man, his hands, we'd call them banana hands. He had those big old fingers. Shake his hands, they just wrap around yours. But in his hands, man, he was good. He could field, man, and that was his thing. He was an infielder, and he could field, and that's he loved to show it off.
And then last one, Cypher by far, and then we can chat a little bit about Cypher.
Oh, he's my favorite by far. By far. Mm-hmm. By far.
Why?
Well, I had him for so long. I had him since I was. He was my coach since 12, and then he rolled into the high school, and then he just kept. He was by far my favorite, for sure. I mean, Stashy was he was like a second dad to me, dude.
Oh, there he is. Perfect.
Awesome. All right, Stashy, what you got?
Yeah, that's pretty special right there. I mean, that's that's cool. That group is. Travis. Yeah, he was a special player. He became a special player. I mean, he was a hard-nosed kid. a young age, but he was, by far, not to say by far, but pretty close to me. One of the, he could just best athlete. I mean, he was a great athlete. I mean, Travis could play basketball. He could do it all. He was just well-rounded. Kind of like, Colin Wilson. Well, great athlete,
Yep.
The funny thing is too, is that, I go back to that group, and when you talk about your middle infield, because I was, became, those guys, I was an outfielder, infielder. I did a lot of different things as a player. So, which helped me be able to coach those positions as a coach. Yeah. But Travis, it's funny is that Travis and B. Will are our middle infield. Brian Willie, Doc Willie now, he's a chiropractor, special guy too. I mean, just a wonderful, they're all my favorites. One of my favorites are, they're all those guys. You can't pinpoint one favorite, but they're all awesome. Sure. But it's funny is that when those guys got to college, this is how good I am. Travis played second base in college, and B. Will went to Augustana and played shortstop.
Really? They flip-flop?
They flip-flop. Well, B. Will for a little bit, just because I think the second that's how he could get to play. I think the shortstop at the time was good, but I think he was struggling, so he got an opportunity to play shortstop to get in the game. He just needed to get in the game. Because B. Will wasn't overly talented. Travis was this great athlete, but they really, as they got older, they really gelled together. Turning double plays and understand the middle part of the infield. Yeah. For that at that level, awesome. Great,
absolutely
kids.
Well, circling back then to your Southeast stuff, like you were there, 6, 7, 8 years. Mm-hmm. How did it end?
Well,
why did you decide to walk away?
Well, buddy, I'll tell you this. I loved every kid that came through. I'm just going to be honest. There was a time where you get to a point in your career, as a head coach, and and the teams that came through after those guys were different kids. There was some talent there, but just we really never got.
I'm going to say this: Southeast doesn't have a pipeline of great talent. You had a little pocket of window of some good players, and probably nothing on the other side of either. And the kids that came in after those guys, the Ricky Weiss and Spencer Pillsbury, Eric Sanders, and then you got Ryan Bush and Jesse Benedict and Frankie Sheehan and Randy Piper. There were some good kids there. Randy was those guys were freshmen when like Piper and Benedict and Bush and Frankie Sheehan. Those guys were freshmen when Travis and those guys were seniors. Okay. So towards the end of the year, those guys, there was some talent there. They played JV because we didn't have a freshman team. They played JV, but Randy Piper was a good pitcher. So we ended up bringing him up at the end of the year. And Randy, and I know Ricky Weiss,
and he beat Washington. To a 2-1, he beat Washington as a freshman. That's a good program. And I'm thinking, man, what did we do wrong? Why did we have this guy up earlier? Holy smokes, hindsight, and he ended up pitching a little bit. We got beat by Fitzpatrick. We faced him in the regional that year. And he beat us 5-4. He threw hard, and Piper threw a little bit. We started a senior. I think maybe Cole Manning might have started that game. And then,
love that guy.
And then, I'm sorry, those guys were Travis. Those guys were juniors at the time.
Wait, Cole was my age.
Yep,
Cole was my age. A year older than Seifert.
Jared Kennedy and Cole Manning and Chad Van Meter.
Chad Van Meter could swing it.
Yeah, he could swing it, but Chad got hurt early on his senior year. We were doing drills. We were hard nosed, getting after it, and he went home after practice and woke up the next day, and his knee was all swollen, and came in, and he ended up tearing his ACL.
Shout out to Chad Van Meter. He was one of the best hitters in the CS8 for a period.
And there's no doubt about it.
His knee fell apart, and he was never the same player. But shout out to Chad. You are not forgotten, brother.
Absolutely.
I always loved that guy.
Jared Kennedy, too. Jared Kennedy and Cole and Cole Manning. They were three seniors. That's all we had was three seniors.
Yeah.
But they were good. They were good players, you know.
Yeah.
They were fun to coach, and I'm glad I got the chance to coach them for a year. I know sometimes they didn't understand me, you know, early on because, you know, I was like I said, I was pretty intense and just, you know, trying to get that program going in the right direction. And but yeah.
Just didn't seem like it was something you wanted to keep doing. Like it just
no. So I go back. You know, we were. You know, you win 3 games year in year. You know, you're 3-28. You're 2-27.
It's a long year. Yeah.
You're competing. You know, one of my I would say favorite years, but one of my Eric's. I think it was Weiss and Sanders and Pillsbury. Those guys were seniors. I think juniors or seniors, but man, those kids competed. I mean, they competed their fannies off. And we had a lot of laughs along the way. We didn't win many games, but we had a lot of fun. You know, even though you're losing, we kept the spirits up. You know, I kind of changed my, you know, at that time I was starting to change my coaching philosophy a little bit with those groups. Okay. Couldn't quite be as intense, you know, with those groups. You know, so you had to change a little bit. Now we're still pretty fired up, but you had to kind of slow it down a little bit with those kids, and because they didn't really understand, you know, the hard nosed regiment part of it. So, but we had fun, you know, but it got to the point where my wife at the time, my ex-wife, she got sick. She got really sick and needed my time. You know, needed my time, and it was probably a good time. To start thinking about, you know, I obviously got to take care of the family, you know, and her. But I had a good, you know, Brad Leininger came in with me that year 07, 06 or 07. He came in as my assistant.
Left. He's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
He just left. Yeah.
Yeah. Great friend of mine, you know, Brad Leininger, top-notch dude. Yeah, great coach. Took that program and ran with it after I left. He actually coached the regional game. I was up at down at Barnes Jewish Hospital with the wife on the phone with him. You know, during the game. You know, they had a situation come up, and he needed a little bit of. So he called me and hey, what do you think we should do? You know, and I'm in St. Louis, and he's in, you know, at the game and. Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember what the situation was from now, but it might have been against Lanphier. Really good player there at the time, but whether they intentionally walk him or it was one of those type of situations. And whatever he did, I don't think it worked, but we ended up losing. But still, but Brad Leininger was a big part that year of, and he was only, I think it was one year, and then I left, and he become, you know, I recommended him to become the head coach, you know, because he was all in, you know, and he was kind of brought to me by fault, he, you know, in the situation because our principal at the time, Tammy Bolden, you know, there was a new teacher coming in. He was young, and he was a baseball guy. I had no idea who Brad Leininger was. You know, and I ended up meeting him, and Tammy pretty much said that he's going to be your assistant. I'm like, okay, you know, why not? And then, I mean, history is there. He took over the program, and he was there for a long time, and had a couple good teams, and won a regional one year with. There was some good players. I knew that that group that he had that won the regional. They were really young. They were like 7th and 8th graders. We knew that they were going to come in at some point in time together. Yeah. So he did have, you know, a little bit there, but no. Anyway, shout out to Coach Leininger for his taking over and doing what he did. You know, he did a tremendous job there. Love that guy.
Passing the torch, Stashy. We're at another hour and a half here. How about we take a little short break here, and then we get into our questions and finish it out here strong. You got time for me?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Let's keep rolling, baby. Are you good?
I'm good, yeah.
Short break? Couple minute break.
That's fine.